Two National Guard members shot near White House. And also fire engulfs Hong Kong residential building. And salam Malaysia Madani, I'm Brendan Paul. We begin with an update on the floods. Malaysian rescue teams working closely with Thai authorities have rescued 1,210 Malaysians from flood-hit Hat Yai and nearby districts in southern Thailand as heavy rain continues to hamper operations. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said the Consulate General of Malaysia in Songkhla and the Embassy of Malaysia in Bangkok are closely monitoring the severe flooding. The situation remains challenging with heavy rain continuing yesterday. The ministry said coordinated rescue efforts have made steady progress despite the challenging conditions. The Foreign Ministry assured that the operations will continue until all registered Malaysians are safely evacuated. The ministry also strongly urged Malaysians who have not registered with the Consulate General of Malaysia in Songkhla or the Malaysian Embassy in Bangkok to do so immediately to ensure timely assistance. On a different note, Thai rescue workers walked through deep flood water under emergency lights last night, helping people escape from one of the worst floods in years. 3 years, 3 days of torrential rain last week dumped record volumes on Hat Yai, Thailand's southern commercial hub, flooding hospitals and stranding thousands of rooftops. Thailand airlifted patients and flew critical supplies, including oxygen tanks, into the submerged southern city as the death toll climbed to 33. The Thai military has mobilized boats, helicopters, and even its lone aircraft carrier to deliver supplies and evacuate the sick. Floods and landslides in Indonesia's North Sumatra province persist as Southeast Asia grapples with deadly weather conditions. In Indonesia's North Sumatra, at least 24 people have died from the flooding and 5 people were missing. Yuyun Karsono, an official at the Provincial Disaster Mitigation Agency on Wednesday, said the regions of Sibolga and central Tapanuli were the hardest hit, with communications and power cut. The Indonesia flooding is among a series of disasters hitting the region of Southeast Asia. Extreme weather events can become more frequent as a result of global warming, with higher sea surface temperatures supercharging tropical storms. In a related development, the Indonesian Meteorology Agency also said 2 active tropical cyclones may have triggered floods in Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia. The agency said Tropical Cyclone Koto had formed near the Philippines, while Tropical Cyclone Senyar was located in the Strait of Malacca. Senyar has battered parts of Indonesia since 21st November and is expected to bring heavy rain to several provinces on Sumatra Island over the next 2 to 3 days. Shocking episode in Washington. 2 members of the National Guard were shot in Washington on Wednesday near the White House, putting the building into lockdown with President Donald Trump away in Florida. The White House described the incident as a targeted attack. Authorities said the suspect was taken into custody after suffering gunshot wounds during the confrontation. FBI Director Kash Patel said the suspect came around a corner and began firing at the Guard soldiers, leaving both victims in critical condition.
The Metropolitan Police Department and their skills in investigating homicides and gun shootings in this city is exceptional. We will work together collaboratively because this is a matter of national security, because it's a matter of pride. President Trump has been informed. We've been in contact with the White House. We will shortchange the American public with no resources to make sure we find and safeguard our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C., and bring anyone responsible for this heinous act of violence to justice.
The motive for the shooting was not immediately clear, and officials said the investigation was still in its early stages. On another note, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that the President Trump has asked for 500 additional troops to be deployed to Washington after 2 National Guard members were shot in the city.
We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down. President Trump will never back down. That's why the American people elected him.
In other news, a fire engulfed a residential building in Hong Kong's northern Tai Po district, with plumes of thick grey smoke billowing out as emergency services battle to subdue the blaze. The death toll from a high-rise fire has risen to at least 44, as the blaze still smoldered, and police said 3 suspects were arrested. Hundreds more remain unaccounted for in the city's worst blaze in decades. The fire, which started on Wednesday afternoon in an 8-building complex with 2,000 apartment units, shocked the Chinese financial hub, which has some of the world's most densely populated and tallest residential blocks.
First of all, in the hours of darkness, it will pose additional danger and difficulties to our operation. And up to this moment, the temperature inside the fire scene is still very high. So we have difficulties in proceeding to upper floors of 2 of the buildings.
Police said 3 men were arrested on suspicion of manslaughter in connection with the fire.
And 警方係鎖定咗工程公司呢3名嘅負責人，佢哋分別係呢個工程公司嘅2名董事、1名工程嘅顧問。而喺較早前，大概凌晨2點，我哋分別喺大埔、牛頭角、新蒲崗拘捕咗3名本地嘅男子，涉嫌誤殺，而年齡係介乎52至到68歲嘅。而佢哋係仍然係被警方扣留進行調查。
On a different note, Hong Kong leader John Lee extended his deepest condolences to those affected in the city's deadliest fire in 3 decades, adding the incident is being taken by the authorities with utmost seriousness.
我係極度重視今次嘅事件。我已經指示政府各個部門同埋單位全力進行多方面嘅工作。首先嘅工作，最首要嘅工作就係撲滅咗今次嘅火災，同埋救援被困嘅居民。第二係救治傷者，第3係支援善後。跟住我哋會作全面嘅調查。
Still ahead, South Africa won't receive invitation to G20 in 2026. Stay with us.
pelengkap dan pintu untuk kekal dingin dan lebih jimat.
President Donald Trump said that South Africa would not receive an invitation to participate in next year's G20 summit in Florida after the U.S. boycotted the Leaders' Summit in Johannesburg last week. The group of 20 leaders adopted a declaration on Saturday addressing the climate crisis and other global challenges despite U.S. objections. The move prompted the White House to accuse South Africa of weaponizing its leadership of the group this year. At the conclusion of the G20, South Africa refused to hand off the G20 presidency to a senior representative from U.S. Embassy who attended the closing ceremony. Therefore, Trump said that South Africa will not be receiving an invitation to the 2026 G20, which will be hosted in Miami, Florida next year. A spokesperson for South Africa's presidency did not immediately respond to a request for comment. On a different note, President Trump advised Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi not to provoke China over Taiwan's sovereignty. The row between Asia's two biggest economies was triggered by a suggestion from new Premier Takaichi that Tokyo could intervene militarily in any attack on the island, which China claims as part of its territory. In a phone call with Trump on Monday, Chinese leader Xi Jinping pressed the ever-sensitive issue, saying its return was an integral part of post-war international order. Shortly after, Trump set up a call with Takaichi and advised her not to provoke Beijing on the question of the island's sovereignty. The advice from Trump was subtle, and he didn't pressure Takaichi to walk back her comments. China has been furious in the wake of Takaichi's comments, summoning Tokyo's ambassador and advising its citizens against travel to Japan. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, said that thousands of internally displaced people in the Gaza Strip are struggling to find safe shelter in preparation for the approaching cold weather. This appeal comes amid the ongoing aftermath of Israel's two-year war on the territory. Thousands of internally displaced people in the Gaza Strip are struggling to find safe shelter in preparation for the coming cold weather. UNRWA pointed out that more than 79,000 displaced people are living in 85 UNRWA-run shelters in the Gaza Strip, amid increasingly dire humanitarian conditions as winter approaches. On Tuesday, a storm accompanied by heavy rains flooded dozens of tents belonging to displaced people in the Al-Mawasi area of Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip, amid warnings of a humanitarian catastrophe. Gaza Strip needs approximately 300,000 tents and refabricated housing units to meet the most basic shelter needs of its residents after Israel destroyed much of the infrastructure during 2 years of its offensive. A Peruvian court sentenced former President Martin Vizcarra to 14 years in prison after finding him guilty of taking bribes years before he took office, adding to a list of former leaders jailed for corruption. Vizcarra accepted bribes equivalent to $676,000 from construction firms in exchange for public works contracts while serving as governor of the southern Moqueque region from 2011 to 2014. Throughout the trial, which began last October, Vizcarra denied the charges, claiming he was a victim of political persecution. He came to power in 2018 after his predecessor resigned and was ousted 2 years later by Congress amid grave investigations. His older brother, Mario Vizcarra, plans to run in the April 2026 presidential election for the Peru First Party, where the former president serves as a key advisor. In the 2021 election, Vizcarra won the most votes of any congressional candidate but was later banned by Congress from holding public office for 10 years for dissolving the legislature in 2019. Peru has been mired in political turmoil, cycling through 6 presidents since 2018, due to impeachments and resignations often driven by corruption scandals. Poland said on Wednesday it had chosen Sweden's Saab to supply it with 3 submarines in a multi-billion-dollar deal that forms a key element of Warsaw's efforts to bolster its defenses in the Baltic Sea. Warsaw has been ramping up investments in the armed forces to counter what it sees as a growing threat from Russia after Moscow's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The deal with Sweden under the Orca program to boost Poland's military exemplifies Warsaw's efforts to build a Baltic alliance, as its traditional Central European ties are pressured by divisions over Russia and approaches towards the European Union. The Baltic region is on heightened alert following a string of cases of suspicious damage to underwater infrastructure since 2022. But authorities have been unable to find sufficient proof of deliberate malicious intent to press charges. The Swedish submarines are designed to deal with seabed warfare and could help NATO to prevent attacks. Sweden's government said Russian aggression made it more important than ever to have an expanded defense cooperation in the Baltic Sea.
Guna mentol jimat tenaga untuk lebih jimat.
Next up in sports, Arsenal beat Bayern Munich to seize Champions League top spot. Stay with us. Arsenal beat Bayern Munich for the first time in a decade to maintain their 100% win record in this season's Champions League with a 3-1 victory, sending them top of the group on Wednesday morning. The game took time to come alive, but the Gunners went ahead in the 22nd minute when Timber headed home a Bukayo Saka corner with a flailing Neuer unable to intercept. Arsenal had looked relatively comfortable, but Bayern were back in the game in the blink of an eye in the 32nd minute, courtesy of teenager Lennart Karl's goal. However, after the break, it was all Arsenal as the Gunners dominated, showing their immense squad depth as substitutes Noni Madueke and Gabriel Martinelli scored the goals to make it 5 wins from as many matches. It proved a quiet return to North London for prolific Bayern striker Harry Kane, as his side suffered their first defeat of the season in all competitions. Bayern started the match at the Emirates, top of the Champions League table, just above the Gunners, with both teams having won 4 games out of 4. With Inter Milan dropping points, Arsenal are now the only team in the competition with a maximum 15 points and looked all but assured of a place in the last 16. Still on the UEFA Champions League, it was a different tale for another English Premier League team. Liverpool's miserable season hit another low on Wednesday when they slumped to a 4-1 defeat to PSV Eindhoven, their first loss in their last 14 games at Anfield in the group stage of Europe's elite competition. The Reds got off to the worst possible start when a bizarre handball from captain Virgil van Dijk led to a PSV penalty in the 6th minute, with Perisic sending Georgi Mamadashvili the wrong way and slotting home. Dominic Szoboszlai tapped in a leveller in the 16th minute after keeper Matej Kovar saved Cody Gakpo's shot but palmed the ball into the path of the Hungarian. Till restored PSV's lead in the 56th minute with a perfectly timed run onto Mauro Junior's through ball and just ahead of Milos Kerkez to poke it into the net past Mamadashvili. Suhaib Drioush gave PSV a 2-goal cushion in the 73rd after Ricardo Pepi launched a shot off the post and Drioush stroked in the rebound. Drioush completed his double in injury time when he easily tapped home a cross from Sergino Dest. Beleaguered English champions Liverpool suffered a 9th defeat in 12 games in all competitions as they crumbled against PSV. In another encounter, Kylian Mbappe scored all 4 goals as Real Madrid hung on to beat Olympiacos 4-3 in the Champions League on Wednesday and end a 3-match winless run in all competitions. Shikin fired home from 20 yards to finish off a neat move as Olympiacos took an early lead in Greece. But Mbappe stole the show and took over as the competition's leading scorer this season. The France captain drilled through the legs of Olympiacos goalkeeper Costa Zoulakis to bring Madrid level on 22 minutes. Mbappe struck again 2 minutes later when he planted a header low into the corner from an Arda Güler's cross. The forward completed the second fastest Champions League hat-trick ever as he ran clear and steered beyond Zoulakis again. His 3 goals coming in the space of 6 minutes and 42 seconds. Only Liverpool's Mohamed Salah in 2022 had scored a quicker hat-trick in the competition. Substitute Mehdi Taremi, who replaced the injured Shikin in the first half, hauled Olympiacos back into the match with a header past stand-in Madrid goalkeeper Andre Lunin on 52 minutes. However, Mbappe was still not done for the night and turned in his 4th goal before Ayoub El Kabi halved the deficit with 9 minutes left. But it was all they could do before the match ended in Madrid's favour.
Sukan Sea Thailand 2025. Jangan lupa saksikannya hanya di RTM. Yahoo! Semangatnya sudah terasa. Nantikannya hanya di RTM. Penyiar rasmi.
Adrian Newey, Formula One star designer and top technical boffin, will take over as Aston Martin team principal next season, with Andy Cowell moving into a strategy role. The Silverstone-based team on Wednesday announced the senior management restructuring in a statement ahead of the weekend's Qatar Grand Prix. Newey committed his long-term future to Aston Martin in September 2024 after his departure from Red Bull sparked a bidding war for his services. Newey, whose cars have won 12 drivers' and 13 constructors' titles for 3 different teams, joined Aston Martin from Red Bull earlier this year as a shareholder and managing technical partner of the team. The softly spoken Briton previously won titles at McLaren and Williams after starting out in 1988 at the now-defunct March Leighton House. Newey will take charge of trackside operations next season, while Cowell has been given a new role as Chief Strategy Officer to focus on the team's engine partnership with Honda. It will be the first time the 66-year-old, who worked closely with former team boss Christian Horner and Dutch 4-times world champion Max Verstappen at Red Bull, has held the position of principal. This year's World Rally Championship will go down to the final race in Saudi Arabia, with just 3 points separating Elfyn Evans and Sebastian Ogier. Evans has long sat top of the leaderboard, but has seen his lead whittled away by Ogier, who has won 3 of the last 4 events, with Evans runner-up in each of them. The 36-year-old Welshman has finished second in 4 of the last 5 World Championships, but has never taken the spot's top prize, while Frenchman Ogier is looking to secure his 9th title and his first since 2021. To add a further twist, Finland's Kalle Rovanperä is also in with an outside chance of seizing the championship, but would require both Ogier and Evans to struggle in the deserts around Jeddah. Ogier took first blood in the battle for the 2025 title, but wasn't getting carried away by the fact he was quicker than Evans, whom he trails by 3 points in the championship. Rally Saudi Arabia is making its debut in the WRC, blending open desert speed and rocky technicality. International Olympic Committee IOC President Kirsty Coventry has lauded the committee's partnership with China Media Group CMG, highlighting its pivotal role not only as a broadcaster but as a cultural bridge that brings the Olympic spirit to life for hundreds of millions of viewers. Earlier this month, CMG signed a long-term agreement with the IOC granting exclusive rights to CMG to the broadcast of Olympic events in the Chinese mainland and Macau from 2026 to 2032. In a program produced by CCTV2, a TV channel under CMG, Coventry emphasized the transformative impact of CMG's coverage. She noted that national broadcaster like CMG play a critical role in tailoring the Olympic narrative to reflect local values and traditions, while staying rooted in the universal ideals of the Games. According to the recently signed agreement, CMG will serve as the sole broadcaster for the upcoming two Olympic Summer and Winter Games, including Milan 2026, Los Angeles in 2028, 2030 Winter Games in the Alps, and Brisbane 2032. It also covers the 2026 Dhaka Youth Olympics and the 2030 Youth Olympics.
MyCard bukan sekadar kad pengenalan, tetapi medium utama yang menghubungkan rakyat dengan pelbagai perkhidmatan kerajaan dan swasta. Banyak insentif kerajaan disalurkan melalui MyCard, daripada bantuan kebajikan, kemudahan kesihatan hinggalah pelbagai program rakyat. Inilah keistimewaan yang dimiliki oleh setiap warga negara Malaysia. Sila periksa keadaan MyCard anda. Sekiranya chip rosak, hilang atau MyCard sudah uzur, segera lakukan penggantian di Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara agar hak dan kemudahan anda sentiasa terjamin. Inilah komitmen madani. Dengan dokumen identiti yang sah, moden dan diyakini, rakyat disantuni sebaiknya. MyCard, identiti anda, kebanggaan negara.
And that wraps up all today in our top story. 2 National Guard members shot near White House. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Brendan Lepol. Salam Malaysia Madani. Take care.